welcome everyone to our second episode of Conversations in the Void. I am Graveyard, joined by my off-screen producer, Salem, who is going to be in the chat, posting comments and questions, and anything that you guys happen to have, we will start along the way, and hopefully we get to by the end of it. But yeah, let's get into it. I am very, very pleased to announce our guest for tonight. I had the pleasure of working with him about 3 or 4 weeks ago now, but I want to introduce to you friend of the show, Josh Brucker. How's it going, Josh? Good. Good.
Not too bad. Not too bad. Another day.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm super excited that you're here. Like I said, I've been talking about, not spoiling anything, but what we did a couple of weeks ago, and I'm just happy that you're here. Awesome.
Yeah.
You ready to get into this?
Yeah, let's go.
All right. So, hey, Metzo, she's one of our co-hosts from another show I'm on. But, we want to get to know Josh Brucker a little bit, right? So, what movie brought Josh Brucker into the horror world that really set you off? Go, hey, I love horror.
Oh, Dad, take you on a trip that goes back probably 30 years ago. I don't know. It's always been something that's interested me.
Mm-hmm.
As a kid, I grew up watching Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Oh, yeah.
And obviously Goosebumps, stuff like that, right? So that was easily digested by a kid like myself. And I think when I first really started watching like horror movies, I used to stay the night at my grandpa's a lot. And we would always rent movies every time we'd go, every time I'd stay the night, and I'd always be allowed to rent a horror movie. Eventually, my parents they had,
Mm-hmm.
don't want them to watch this, don't want them to watch that. They gave in fairly quickly, but they realized I wasn't like a raging lunatic after watching a couple. My grandpa also recorded Tales from the Crypt on like VHS tapes.
Yeah.
So he had like all those saved in like a big pull-out drawer underneath the TV. So I used to watch those all the time, and it's just a genre that still keeps me interested in watching, and that's really it. It's always been something that you heard me talking. It just keeps me coming back, and as a writer too, I also write. Stephen King always kind of intrigued me, and Dean Koontz even too, and science fiction stuff like Michael Crichton.
Mm-hmm.
All just kind of blended together and kind of created who I am, really.
Nice. Do you remember what your first horror movie was?
I don't know exactly which one. There's a few instances that I remember, like bringing home The Thing when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty monumental in my love for horror. My dad let me the first Friday the 13th movie.
Ooh.
And I mean, God, this had to be right after my parents divorced. So I had to have been almost 8 or 9 at the time. So, and I was always in love with like one movie that I wouldn't consider horror because it's more fun and campy, is Tremors. And then I remember I loved Tremors to death when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think my parents let me watch Critters even when I was younger, because they just saw it as kind of like a corny B-flick horror, and there was nothing too much about it that I couldn't watch until they realized that there were boobs in part 2.
Yes, there were.
They had to put a stop to that.
Yes, the alien that transformed into the Playboy model. Yes.
Yeah. He but those are always, those are kind of the ones that I can really remember looking back.
Nice. Now, in your opinion, what do you think is the most overrated horror franchise?
You got me with a question like this before, and I feel like it's a setup.
No.
Overrated. I know we talked last time. We spoke about like found footage and things like that. I'm not a huge fan of Bad Ben series that's out there. That's a huge favorite amongst horror for found footage genre fans. Oh well, if I would have to pick just a traditional horror franchise, I'm not a huge fan of uh, the Hellraiser series, I guess. And I think it's because I mean, I may have mentioned when we talked last about like Nightmare on Elm Street not being one of my favorites. I think Hellraiser kind of hit that for me too. I did not get into it when I probably should have, right?
Right.
And go ahead.
That's my producer. He loves Hellraiser.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
making enemies already.
Oh no, it's good fun. We said we did those on the podcast last year, all 11 of them in a week and a half. So
yeah,
that's I understand. Like I said, it only took number 4 for them to get to space. Usually it takes a little bit longer
for Critters too. So, well, no, Critters went to space in number 4, didn't they?
Yes, that's when the dopey town drunk got like frozen on the spaceship. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I think when I get to Woodmen 4, we're gonna have to figure out how to get like the feral humans on a space station, maybe.
Ooh, yes. I'm down for that. Let's make that happen. I mean, if Amityville can go into space and it's a house,
you know what? Can I retract my Hellraiser?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just gonna lump all the Amityville movies together into one franchise, and except for a handful, maybe the first one and maybe a couple of the sequels after, we can flush those all down the toilet.
I think there's like 48 of them now.
yeah, they can all go. All of them.
There you go. I'm down for that. I really am.
Right, cool.
I'm dreading for that series rewatch for the podcast, honestly.
But I don't know. Do you have an entire year?
It's going to probably be a summer of Amityville, and this is probably the first time my co-host and I have been discussing it tentatively offline a lot of what movies franchises are we dreading doing, and that's definitely one of them. You
need to have at least some parameters, because anybody can slap Amityville on the title.
Oh yeah,
and make it an Amityville movie. You should at least keep it in Amityville.
There you go. That's a good stipulation. I like it.
Yeah, that ought to save you some time.
All right, but let's get into what Josh Brucker does for the horror world, right? You are a writer, you're a producer, you are a director of movies, right? For anyone who doesn't know, check out the other Distance Learning show that we had with Josh on there. There's lots of information here too. But I have a question. I don't know if we ever discussed this on that long weekend we did. How did you become part of Horror Dadz Productions?
Yeah, so I want to say probably the spring of 2022. And it was me, Dylan, and Jake Robinson at the time.
Mm-hmm.
We were all working together, and we decided to just create kind of like a think tank collaboration effort. And we created Horror Dadz Productions. And that's kind of, my introduction into filmmaking kind of stems from Dylan Brown.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of met Jake along the way while I was in pre-production for my first movie, Mothman. And we all kind of talked separately, and eventually we all kind of came together in a group chat, and it kind of was created from that, really. It's really what Horror Dadz is just a group of dads that loves horror, and we help each other out when we can. We're in the process of creating a shared cinematic universe together, so all our movies, well, not all of them, I should say, some of them kind of converge and contain Easter eggs that kind of let the audience know that you might be watching this movie, but this other director's got something going on that kind of exists on the outside. So it's really exciting.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Like I said, I know a little bit, and I'm not going to say anything about what you guys are working towards. And especially, we'll talk a little bit about your movie that's coming out, premiering in just a little over 2 weeks. Right.
Yeah.
But the shared universe is the cryptidiverse, right? Is that what you guys are officially calling it?
Yep, that's what we call it, the cryptidverse. It starts with Mothman. It's got Tahoe Joe from Dylan Brown, and Dylan's in the process of putting together Tahoe Joe 2. I filmed, I filmed Woodmen back in June, and we're preparing for that release as well. So that's all part of it, and that's really it.
Yeah, I mean, Dylan's going to be coming on the show, I believe, in a couple of weeks. Hunter's going to be coming on the show too, so I'm excited to talk to them as well. So, obviously, without spoiling anything, you're talking maybe Woodmen 2, right? Or more movies in the cryptidiverse on your end.
Well, I guess I can say that the next feature that I will be working on, I'm already starting pre-production, I suppose. If you want to consider drafting a screenplay or a shooting draft anyways, pre-production. We'll be doing Woodman 2 next year.
Sweet.
Yep.
Sweet. Yeah, so we have some good questions. How did Let's Create asking, did you go to film school? You didn't.
Correct? I did not. I studied history at Eastern Illinois University. Totally nothing related to film at all whatsoever. I remember telling my mom that I wanted to change majors. She wasn't going to pay for anything if I did that. Joke's on her. I waited 20 years, 15 years or whatever it's been since college. Yeah, so basically, I tried to get into film a number of years ago. I tried to shoot a short film. It didn't work out. And I kind of put it on the back burner. I kind of self-taught myself screenwriting and took some advice from some people that I knew a number of years ago, and they kind of showed me, what to do and what not to do, how to, set up scenes and how not to set up scenes, because I had been just a standard fiction writer, and I've written nonfiction books as well. So it's kind of hard to break yourself of certain habits when you're, getting into screenwriting. So I worked those kinks out, and I kind of put everything on pause for, I want to say about 4 or 5 years or so. And the gods blessed me with some time off from work. I actually got laid off from my job, and my fiance, she was in the middle of going to school. So I decided that I was going to, take some time off, stay home, be with the kids, make sure everyone's taken care of, because her degree is in the medical field, so it required a lot of clinicals, a lot of this, a lot of that, a lot of running around. So me being home just made sense, and I decided that I was going to get back into trying to make a movie, and that's kind of what I did. And I knew that there were a few things that I needed to understand. And Dylan Brown was one of the first people that I became really good friends with. Early on, I talked to Dutch. He's responsible for the Horror in the High Desert series, and he gave me some pointers as well. And that's kind of it. And then obviously me and Dylan are good friends to this day, and he kind of helps me out still, and I help him out, and we talk daily, and that's really it. Once I learned a lot of the finer details of filmmaking, it's something that, if you're careful enough, you don't really need film school, I would say.
Right.
Especially the genre that I work in, found footage. That's very it's tailor-made for people who are new at filmmaking and relatively inexperienced, because one, it gives you the opportunity to make a movie, and it's fairly cheap to produce those types of films.
Right. Yeah, I know after working with you and talking to you and Dylan and Hunter, I have the bug now too, quite honestly.
Yeah. It's easy to catch. I'm not gonna lie. Once you finally like create something, and you're like, I made that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Let's keep making things. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and you and I have been discussing the idea of the Owl Man of Alsup for a while, and looking at masks and stuff like that. So something I hope to do at one day, maybe 2024 myself.
Yeah.
But yeah,
and I'll be there to help you too, because I'm not too far away.
No, you're not that far away. Like I said, you're only about 10 more miles than it was for me to go to work. So, now let's talk without spoiling much. You have The Woodmen coming out, premiering the 27th and 28th of October. So tell us, this is your first movie that's going to be in the theater. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I actually partnered with a local theater here,
Mm-hmm.
kind of close to where I live. It's very small town, very rural, something like I'm familiar with, and they kind of run a private movie theater that they kind of rent out, and the Historical Society for Hoopeston, Illinois, which is where it's premiering, kind of runs it on the side. No one takes a salary, so it's all volunteer. And any funds that are raised during any screenings that they have there kind of get dumped into the Historical Society, like I said, to help restore a lot of the old buildings in town. And one in particular is a theater from the 1900s.
Oh, wow.
They're in the process of restoring. So in small towns like this, schools especially, we always hear that the arts are attacked first when it comes to budget cuts. So I know, for instance, my kids go to a school that does not have a theater program.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I see it as kind of an opportunity to help that community out also at the same time. Plus, they're super cool guys. I've gotten to know the dude who kind of runs the place. He's a good friend of mine now, I would say, and it gives me an opportunity to put my film on display for the community that I live in,
Right.
and anybody else who's willing to take the drive out.
Oh, that's me and my co-host. We're coming down on the 28th, so
awesome.
So after it's premiered, how does your distribution typically work? With Mothman, and what are you going to do for distribution then for the Woodmen?
We're still working that out right now. So I have a producer that's kind of taking the reins there as far as seeking distribution deals, and I'm kind of there right with him as we're kind of picking through which offers are best, which offers are not, because distribution is tough for an indie film, because oftentimes indie filmmakers don't make any money. I was fortunate enough to distribute Mothman through Indie Rights, which of the distribution companies out there for independent filmmakers, Indie Rights is probably one of the better ones, I would say. We kind of wanted to do something different with Woodmen. So I've got a few offers on the table, and we're going to continue to negotiate those offers. Anybody listening, my cat's bothering me right now. We are in negotiation, like I said, with a couple companies. But we also have self-distribution in the back of our minds as well. So, and that seems to be that's a very hot topic these days amongst indie filmmakers, and that circle of people. Whether you sign with a distribution company or you take that on yourself. So,
right.
And you have to ultimately decide what's best for the project itself. Some movies might benefit from a traditional distribution, and other movies might not. You have to kind of weigh the odds.
Right. Now I know Dylan has made physical copies of his movies. Do you have any plans of doing physical copies? And I'd love to see them on VHS, honestly.
Yeah. I'm not 100% sure on that route. I know Dylan's talked to us a little bit about that too, because I've seen that he's got a limited run of Ghost coming out. It's typically I know a few avenues in which I can get physical media out there, particularly if I go the self-distribution route, because then I'm in 100% control of it. So that is one of the stipulations that we discuss when we're trying to negotiate a contract, is there physical media? And if there isn't, can I retain those rights and do it myself? So, and a lot of the times with enough negotiation, filmmakers are allowed to maintain physical rights. So then you can, create the files yourself and have a company manufacture the discs and everything like that.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Especially, I want, as we discussed before, going to conventions and stuff like that to help spread the Horror Dadz word into the world.
That's kind of what I want to do throughout 2024 as well, while we're kind of in pre-production for Woodmen 2. Is I want to give myself some opportunities to really get out there and engage one-on-one with the horror community, be it get Woodmen in as many festivals or screeners as I possibly can, or that would be allowed, I should say. And also, maybe set up a booth and just really spread the word about what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I will definitely if work that booth with you too. I'll be right there. I want to do more cons in 2024. I'm hoping for cons. I'm hoping with what we're doing here, the podcast and the show, that Comic-Con Radio, who we're part of, will help sponsor that and get us into stuff, and then be able to get Horror Dadz in there as well with tables and everything like that. So
that'd be awesome.
We'll be in touch, obviously, for that, because we talk often enough as it is for 2024. So, another question here from chat is, how big is your budget and how big is your team for these movies?
Sure. Yeah. So it's typically, so when I'm in pre-production, I look at what the film needs as far as crew and cast, right? So cast is always pretty well defined. But your crew is not. So it all depends on how you want to do it. So the great thing about found footage is you don't typically need a sound company if you can get away with it.
Right.
We didn't have a sound crew for Woodmen, but Tyler Horner, our cinematographer, he had a pretty decent mic, and that was kind of on deck for the rig that he used, which would be pretty typical if you kind of put yourself in that situation. If you are going to be filming a situation like that, you won't be carrying around extra people. So it does give the project some authenticity there. I mean, you don't want to skimp on audio, because that's one of the big things that people really hit on when it comes to like criticizing a movie. I don't really think that's not the case at all. I'm super happy with how the audio turned out for Woodman in that particular aspect. But to get back to the rest of the crew, you kind of how many assistants that you're probably going to need to help set up scenes. Cinematographer usually needs a helping hand with getting the blocking that he needs to set up the scene as well. You need to know how many people you're going to feed and how many people you're going to house. So for Woodmen, we didn't have too many, probably no more than 12 at a time was probably like the largest day we had. And I want to say probably about 15 for Mothman. So, I mean, that's pretty typical for a small production like ours.
Right.
And budget-wise, both of my feature films were crowdfunders. So you start with a base budget, what you know that you can make this film for. And you kind of start there, which is what I did. And anything after that just kind of helps you create kind of what you would have wanted to do had you had more money. I've got a pretty good handle now on costs and how a movie, how much a movie really is going to cost to make. So that's at least getting a little bit easier, because I think we had about 14 grand for Mothman, and I had about 10 for Woodmen, and I think the differences are nice personally. I'm a huge fan of Woodmen. I think there's a few things that I would have done differently in Mothman, but you can see my growth, and I've been learning quite a bit as far as that goes.
Oh yeah, I mean, I have had the pleasure of seeing both of your movies, and then I'm excited to go see it on the big screen, and I gotta say though, without spoiling anything for Woodman, we've discussed this, the audio is fantastic. I love the sound effects that even the actors were doing in the movie.
Yeah.
Especially, we'll just call it right now just the tent scene without saying anything else.
Yeah, and that is a great scene, and maybe I'll jump on here once the movie's out after people have watched it, and we can kind of get into the nitty gritty, because I know we've already talked about it in private.
Yeah,
but there's a lot of cool stories behind that I wouldn't mind divulging.
Yeah. So we have about 5 minutes left of the show, and you're welcome to come on anytime. We can, once the movie's out, and we can talk about this all the time, so we make sure people have the chance to see it. I'd love to have you back on for Woodmen and all the future projects that you're working on. So we're gonna get into the hard questions, right? What's better, practical or CGI?
Oh, practical. Not even a question.
Yeah.
I would hope. I don't know. I've never. I don't know. I grew up in the '90s, man. You remember how CGI looked?
Oh, I definitely remember '90s
Spielberg
CGI.
money.
Yeah.
If you had Spielberg money, that stuff was looking like trash.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, another hard one. If you can work in any IP or franchise, what would it be?
Oh, Critters.
Critters?
Yeah, I don't even need to stop thinking about it. If I can make an installment for Critters, I would do that in a heartbeat. I would give up what I'm working on at the present moment. Just be like, all right, that's on the back burner.
Mm-hmm. Let's go. Did you see the one that came out? Do you see the one that came out a couple years ago?
I did, yeah. Yeah, I've got that. It took me a while to find it on Blu-ray, but I was able to find it.
Oh yeah,
that was about the only way that I think at the time. I think I first watched it on Redbox.
Mm-hmm.
I actually rented the disc from the local Walmart, and after that, it took me forever to find it on Blu-ray. But yeah, I watched it. I never got to see that little TV series that they did.
It's hard to find. I couldn't find it.
Yeah, I think it's kind of been lost forever.
Yeah. All right. So, any advice for people getting into the filmmaking field, let alone horror or found footage?
Sure. What advice? I would say do what you know you can accomplish. I think. I think a lot of filmmakers early on might be a little bit too ambitious. I know I was overly ambitious with some of the ideas that I had for Mothman, and I should have toned those down and maybe changed the story in a way that is more feasible and I could easily pull it off. It's not a requirement to just blow everything out of the water, right? So it's easy to it's easy to kind of get ahead of yourself when you're in the middle of creating something. That creativity is just flowing, and you don't want it to stop. And you think, okay, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Yeah.
It's easy to kind of let that get away and lose a little bit of the practicality of film. So I would say if you've got a good idea, have a close circle of friends that you can trust, that you can help bounce ideas off of, especially people who will tell you that that might not work right now on the budget that you're doing. Or you're working on the no budget, let's kind of change it a little bit there and there. So have a good circle of friends and take it slow, because it'll go by really fast.
That's awesome. All right, you ready for the random horror trivia question?
Yeah.
All right. Do it. Paris Hilton's on-screen demise was the primary draw for what 2005 remake?
Oh, House of Wax.
Yes.
I'm another 90s kid, man. You can't talk about Paris Hilton without me knowing everything about her.
Oh, yes. All right. So as we're wrapping up here, Josh, where can we find you on social media? Where can we find the Mothman? And where can we send everyone to watch it?
Sure. Yeah. So horrordadsproductions.com is where I would send everybody to check out the movies that we already have out, what we've got in pre-production, and what's going to be releasing soon. So those links are all there too. Anything that we've released, that website will link you to either Tubi, or if it's free content, it'll take you to YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody can find me I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Those are the three that I use the most. And it's a variation of JD Brucker. So I think JD Brucker for Twitter and JD Brucker like 89 for Instagram, things like that. You can find me. I'm just the director. There's not too many Josh Bruckers out there, so you can find me.
No? Yeah, and I do have some of your links in the description below for this video, and I'll put more on there as well. So yeah, anything else you want to leave with our audience today before we head out?
No, just keep your eyes peeled for more information about the Woodmen, because we're going to hopefully here within the next couple weeks have some distribution announcements and things. And yeah, if they want to give me a follow, they can stay up to date. We have a Horror Dadz Facebook page and a Twitter handle that you can follow, and I think Instagram too. I'm not 100% sure there.
Yes.
So everybody can follow those. It's usually just at Horror Dadz Productions. And yeah, just stay up to date and give us some support. We always need it. We're growing, and we want to rock the house.
Awesome. Well, everyone, I have been Graveyard. I've had a blast tonight. I hope, Josh, you had a fun. I hope everyone listening live and in the comments, make sure to like, comment, subscribe this, get this channel growing. Yeah, and if anyone that is part of the horror community, whether it's writers, directors, comic book artists, anything, hit us up on, you can hit me up at Graveyard at the Mostly Pod Out Night, mostly.com, or you can follow us on all social media at Pod Out at Night. And, make sure you don't get lost in the void. And once again, thank you very much to Josh Brucker for joining us tonight. We will see you next week. And everyone have a good night. Bye.
Bye.